There has never been a better time to be an archer player in Rise of Kingdoms. In this video, we're going to review the very best archer pairs, not in an abstract way, but how you weave them into the murder ball you're bringing to the battlefield, whether it's 5 marches, 6 marches, 7 marches that you're using. And let me tell you, archers are freaking terrifying. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and in this video, we're going over the very best archer pairs in the game. Not in an abstract way, but in a very practical way, based on how many marches you're going to bring to a murder ball. So let's get things started with a classic 5-march murder ball. Now, I use 2 infantry, 1 cavalry, and 2 archers in my murder ball, and a lot of people do the same. So what would you do if you're bringing 2 archer marches to a 5-march murder ball? And I think, by the way, after much debate with Cortex, thank you, Cortex, for walking through all this with me. I think we landed on some really great lists here. If you're going to bring only 2 archer pairs to a murder ball, you want lots of AoE damage and you want lots of utility. You would definitely bring Gilgamesh as one of the commanders. That is because he is going to reduce the health of the target and make targets take more skill damage. And of course, I mean, making them take damage when they heal is pretty solid. The secondary you'll bring to Gilgamesh is Esong. The reason I like the Gilgamesh Esong pair is because Esong is going to make you generate more rage. That means you apply your debuff faster on Gilgamesh, reducing the health of the target and making them take, well, the skill damage comes from the blood craving, but reducing the health of the target faster, which means you get ahead of the skill cycle of all your other commanders, and you do a lot of damage. So Gilgamesh Esong, really solid. Gilgamesh is tanky. Esong has a ton of damage. No march speed in there, but a lot of damage nonetheless, I think is a great way to go. The second march you would bring to this murder ball, I said I was serious about AoE, and you just gotta bring Nebu. Nebu becomes the primary for the second march, and I wasn't expecting who I would pick as the secondary. I wouldn't have thought of this, but actually, I think it's the way to go. And it's Nebu with a tomyris secondary. Why is that? Sure, you're not going to be able to have a really slow skill cycle on the Nebu in the same way that you would with other commanders to make the tomyris debuff stack up to 15. But let me tell you something. In most cases in the open field, I found that targets that were getting focused with a tomyris were blowing up way before she got to use her active skill anyways. Rarely did I get to use tomyris' active skill, and if we were laying into a target like that, they were a goner anyways, right? So I think you want the tomyris to be present. She has the crazy debuff over here with making them take skill damage. She has an instant proc 30% defense reduction, and she's resilient against cavalry, which is, of course, a weakness of archers, right? She's got increased counterattack. The Nebu tomyris combo, I don't think it's like the best archer march in the game, but I think if you're only bringing 2 marches, those are the 4 commanders you want, and that is exactly how I would configure them. Now, I just want to mention, before I go any further in the video, that there are just a ton of great archer marches. So if you other really good archer marches that, you know, you might be thinking about for your 2 march or your 2 archer marches in the murder ball would be pairings like Nebu with Esong, or Cyrus with Ramses is a very top-tier pairing, and that is largely because Cyrus is making the target take additional damage taken over time, and then Ramses does damage over time, which is very powerful. Artemisia and Tomyris, of course, would belong in this list of like really great commander pairs for a murder ball. You've also got a Minotaur with Artemisia, which is going to be really, really insane as a combo, where potentially, I mean, you don't even get silenced and you get the damage boost over here. We have to test that that works, but the support tree from a Minotaur is really, really protective. Artemisia has a lot of tankiness, and then the self-damage triggers the 4th skill on Minotaur. So even if you're not getting hit by skill damage, you'll still do just tons of AoE. Yeah, I mean, a Minotaur with Artemisia is a terrifying open field march. And then, of course, Ramses with Esong is just one other march that, like, all of those are really great candidates for a 2-march contribution to a murder ball with archers, okay? So those are really solid marches. I wanted to mention all of them before I continue, and now let's go to 3 archer marches. So whether or not you're using a 6-march murder ball with 3 archer marches, or a 5-march murder ball with 3 archer marches. Here are the combos that we came up with. First thing we would weave in is we find a better home for tomyris. So as a baseline, you go back to the tried and true Artemisia with tomyris combo. I think that's really solid. It finds a good way to keep tomyris in the combo, bring in the AoE and tankiness of Artemisia. I like that. You fall back on the tried and true Nebu with Esong if you're bringing 3 archer marches. These two just work together so well. It's just an outrageous amount of AoE with the march speed and also the tankiness that Nebu brings with the defense. Solid pairing, a lot of AoE. And the final combo you would bring is going to be, of course, the new Archer Gilgamesh has to be there. And we kind of landed on the Cyrus secondary as a really great choice. There's a lot of good choices, but the thing that we liked about Cyrus secondary is that not only does Cyrus bring instant proc damage, not only does he have a debuff that's relevant, reducing the skill damage dealt by the target and the damage over time that they take, he's got revenge damage in an AoE fashion on your Cyrus. So I thought that the punch of Cyrus and even the rage generation of Cyrus, once your skill cycle sort of starts to get going, would be really, really well with Gilgamesh. Those two we pair together for 3 terrifying must-answer threats in a murder ball, which brings us to a 4 archer march configuration. Whether you're doing 5 marches on the field with 4 archers and you're just forgetting 1 unit type, maybe your 5th march is infantry, maybe it's cavalry, whatever. Whether or not you're doing maybe like a 7-march murder ball and you're committed to 4 freaking archer marches. Here are the archer marches that we thought you could sort of best configure those different archers, okay? The first thing we got to do is, again, lean on Artemisia tomyris. Foundational, great debuff from the Tommy, as I mentioned. From there, we really like the tried and true Cyrus Ram combo for all the reasons I've already discussed. Cyrus and Ramses are just a very powerful combination. They are made for each other. They're so strong. From there, I of course want to have Gilgamesh in the mix. I want Esong in the mix. I want Nebu in the mix. So how do we weave them in? We paired Gilgamesh with Esong. And the reason I like that is that you really want the health reduction to apply before everybody's active skill cycle starts to fire up. So by pairing with Esong, there's a chance that you generate some extra rage. You have Gilgamesh's skill land first, reducing the health, and then everybody else hits with just a bunch of damage. So we use the Gilgamesh Esong, and the final march that we bring is a Minotauri with Nebuchadnezzar. So that's how you get lots of AoE damage. You've got just a ton of utility, a ton of debuffs. Honestly, it's very terrifying in that 7-march murder ball. Now, there was one other way that we came up with to sort of configure this that I actually thought was really solid, and it's a different allocation of tomyris, really. In this new approach for the 4 marches you bring with archers, your baseline is Edward and Tommy. Okay, so he's got march speed, he's got health, the Tommy debuffs, really solid. From there, we actually use that Minotauri Artemisia combo, which is just a ton of damage. Not any utility, really. Just a ton of damage, right? We go for tons of AoE. Neb Esong gets paired together for a ton of AoE. And then last pair will be Gilgamesh with Cyrus. Also really powerful. And the whole combination, like, the archers are so good, it's hard to find a bad way to pair them together. In fact, what if you're bringing all 5 marches as archers, either in a 5-march murder ball, or you're bringing 7 marches to the field. You got 1 cav, you got 1 infantry, and you go 5 archers. And this is terrifying. This is truly terrifying. I mean, genuinely, archers are probably the best commander type in the game if you're going all in on 1 unit type. It's disgusting. And if you want more information about going all in on 1 unit type, I'll have a card up in the top for my video where we reviewed exactly how much extra damage you can get by going all in on 1 unit type. So 5 archer marches, are you ready for this? Because it's truly disgusting. When we landed on this set of combinations, I was truly like shocked and terrified. First march, Edward and tomyris. Second march, a Minotauri and Artemisia for crazy AoE. Third march is the Cyrus with Ramses for just outrageous damage to single targets with a ton of utility. Fourth march is going to be Gilgamesh and Nebuchadnezzar. Sure, you're not generating extra rage for Gilgamesh, but you're doing a ton of damage. You got a lot of march speed and tankiness. Health and defense is really gross. And last but not least, the Trajan was Cortex's idea and the Esong was my idea as the secondary. Trajan Esong is absolutely terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. It really is. Because the extra rage gen with Trajan from Esong proccing on his second skill means that Trajan will fire off before everybody else potentially, which means everybody's going to get a skill damage boost when they start to fire off their active skills. It's truly disgusting. Also, they're going to take extra damage because of this right over here. I mean, like, that murder ball is truly terrifying. Just think about that. Edward Tommy, Aminotori Artemisia, Cyrus Ramses, Gilgamesh Nebu, and Trajan Esong. And when I started to think about that, is that 5-march murder ball just outright better than bringing the best marches of every troop type? Is it? Because it just might be. Let's talk about that for a second. You could bring Guan with Leo. I love that, right? Very powerful march. Trajan and Herald. That way you're getting the Trajan buffs, the instant proc damage on the Herald, the AoE revenge damage. You bring XY William for just like crazy AoE defense reductions and the rage gen and the boosted defense. You bring Gilgamesh with Esong and Neb with Tommy, which we talked about at the very beginning as like those are the 2 archer marches you bring. And when I compare the all archer march murder ball to the one with the mixed troop types, when you start to factor in that you could have the Ottoman civilization giving you 5% extra health on every march you have, if you're all in on one type, you have the special unit in every march, and it's all special units. You have 5% skill damage boost, which is super relevant for everything you bring. I mean, the Archer March murder ball is honest to goodness terrifying and might even just be better by virtue of being able to, again, have the special unit type and a city skin that's just for archers with no downside to anything else. Like, going all in on the one unit type might, honest to goodness, just be the way to go. Archers at this moment in time in Rise of Kingdoms are absolutely freaking terrifying. And if I had 5 sets of archer equipment, I would probably be looking to move in on that exact murder ball, because what threat do you hit? Do you hit the Edward Tommy? I mean, it's got 30% extra health. It's got extra counterattack. It reduces the attack of freaking cavalry. Okay, so that's not a great target to hit. Do you hit the Aminotori with Artemisia? I mean, Artemisia is bringing 40% of defensive stats. Aminotori's got the support tree, so you're reducing the damage you take, the skill damage anyways. Okay, so are you instead going to hit Cyrus Ram, and they're going to start doing revenge damage, and like Ramses is really tanky to begin with, and he starts to kick into high gear when he's getting attacked? I mean, that's not an amazing choice to hit. Do you hit Gilgamesh Nebu, who's got 30% defense, 30% health, and 15% less normal attack damage taken? Were you going to hit Trajan Esong? Which must-answer threat do you hit? Archers are terrifying in Rise of Kingdoms at this moment in time. There's never been a better time to be an archer player. And I am honest to goodness terrified and genuinely considering whether or not I go in on a 5 Archer March murder ball. Not, by the way, as a substitute for bringing at least 1 infantry, at least 1 cavalry. I think I got to do that because my gear's really stacked there. So I still think in that case, the equipment offsets the rest of it. So in a 7 March murder ball, I probably go with the 5 archers, not going to lie. And I got to take a serious look and say, man, like, should I be considering maybe 3 archer marches in the murder ball? The 5 March murder ball, Gilga Cyrus, Neb Esong, Art Tommy. Archers are terrifying. I'm hyped for it. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, throw a like on here and consider subscribing. It supports the channel 100% for free. It costs you nothing and is a huge boon. So throw the like on here, subscribe so you don't miss the rest of Archer Week. Up next, in probably tomorrow or the day after's video, We're going to talk about how the new archers change the entire landscape of the metagame and probably update our tier list. So you're not going to want to miss that. And until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom. And if you're looking for something else to watch, like trying to evaluate just how good is that mixed March murder ball that I was talking about earlier with the Guan Leo and so on, I'll have a card up in the top where I'm just smashing in the open field with that thing. And you can see sort of exactly what it's like to play in the open field for long stretches with a murder ball, and consider, like, how would Gilgamesh change the mix, or how would one of these other commanders influence the outcome?